Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
What's going on, Fantasy Champs? Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. My name is Morgan Colby. I got Rick Lemon with me, as always, was Pop and Ricardo.
What's up, bro?
I like the new background here for Rick.
Oh yeah, I have to tell you guys something. I just signed with the New England Patriots.
Oh, what was it? A $1 contract?
It's a one-day $1 contract.
Nice.
To not say anything mean about Bill Belichick.
Yeah. Impossible. Well, welcome on to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. We are full-fledged into the summer. It's June 14th. I counted how many Sundays left without football. 12. So
it's really not even that bad.
Yeah, it's 3 months.
Well, when you put it like that, I guess it's kind
of 12 Sundays with absolutely nothing to do. I can't wait. And technically it's sooner just because we're less than 100 days out, so that's good.
That's cool.
But the NFL season is slowly inching closer. I feel like, I don't know if I said this before, but I feel like, I might say this every Tuesday, to be honest with you, because I'm just kind of out of it. But once you hit July, things start happening for the NFL, and then it's like, it makes it a little bit more bearable to not have NFL games, but the anticipation continues to grow. So training camps start like second to last week of July. So, and I do a crap ton of stuff on 4th of July. I'm literally going to see like 4 different fireworks shows, shoot off my own fireworks. So that takes up a lot of time.
Something else.
No, that takes up a lot of time. And then finally you get to the end of July and training camps happen for like 2-3 weeks. And all of a sudden you're in preseason and I'm watching, you know, Garrett Wilson drop passes from Zach Wilson.
Yep.
So anyway, in the meantime, we'll talk about fantasy football. We'll go through all of the minutia of the fantasy football world in the offseason and prepare you for your drafts. Today we're going to talk about the top 5 wide receiver sleepers that me and Rick have for you going into 2022. This is a little bit easier than the other freaking show where we had to do sleeper running backs. If a running back is good, they're drafted early. Otherwise, you're in a mess.
Yeah. That's a topic for another day.
It's a complete disaster. So anyway, no mock drafts this week, by the way. We're taking a break from the mock draft. We do 2 shows. A
rare non-mock draft.
I know. I for our quarterback sleeper show, quick question, Rick.
Okay.
Should we just do 3 quarterbacks, considering that the top 5 is most likely going to be Fields, Lawrence, Mac Jones, Trey Lance, and
we already did. I did. You weren't there for the quarterback sleeper show.
No, that was the quarterback.
That was wait, what was that?
Second year quarterbacks. Oh, you know what? Well,
no, wasn't this?
Never mind. The QB sleeper show will be different. I don't know why I put every single rookie quarterback, even though they'll all make the list. Ex-rookie quarterback, second-year guy. But anyway, let's not put the cart before the horse. We are going to talk about top 5 wide receiver sleepers. Before we do, check our website, fantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all those platforms. Type in the FF Champs, you'll find us there. If you're watching on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any other podcast platforms, just slowly open your phone, pop open the review tab, and just leave a review.
And do what?
Really simple. Leave a review. Okay. I don't know. Say something nice. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, like and comment down below any questions you have or your favorite sleeper wide receiver this year.
Yeah, I'll tell you, my favorite sleeper is Jacoby Myers.
My favorite sleeper is Dynasty wide receiver 1, T. Higgins.
I really like Tyquan Thornton. I'm going to draft him in the 14th round.
Is that because you have the Patriots background up? Or
yeah, it's my one-day contract. I have to take all Patriots players.
Yeah, you got to talk good about Tyquan. All right, so let's start the list off with some easy softballs here.
Okay.
Guys that me and Rick fully agreed on, and we got some interesting players in this group. But the first one is Rashad Bateman, and obviously there's a couple of different variables that go along with Bateman and his situation in Baltimore. But as soon as Hollywood was traded in the NFL draft, that was like a big flashing red sign that was like, all right, this guy needs to be, I don't know if he's going to be a, top 7, top 6 wide receiver, or even a top 10 wide receiver, but this guy is going to be efficient and productive in the Ravens offense, considering there's no one else there. His ADP right now is really not that high. And I'm trying to find him. It's pick 89, which is basically an 8th or 9th round selection. So he's a guy that you're going to draft most likely, unless you drafted like 5 running backs, a quarterback, and a tight end, and then we're like, you know what, I'm going to finally get my receiver. He's most likely going to start the season on your bench.
Yeah, maybe flex, but depending on how you
maybe
draft.
Flex, right? But I feel like there's a really good opportunity for for players to jump onto the Rashad Bateman train. I mean, even when you look at the projections on Sleeper, the Sleeper projections for players, I don't like to take projections besides the ones that me and Rick create into account most times, or the ones that are on Fantasy Pros, because it's a conglomerate of everyone. But when you look at Sleepers, literally the guys around him, 199, 188, 183.
Yeah.
So he's at 207 fantasy points projected. I think he has a really good chance to be a mid to high end wide receiver too. Be productive for your fantasy team, and probably, I mean, this is, when you talk about guys like, I just referenced some guys around him, but like Hunter Renfrow is going to be second fiddle to Devontae Adams, right? Tyler Lockett, second fiddle to DK Metcalf in a bad offense. Elijah Moore, probably the wide receiver one there. If I had to take a guess, it's also a really great pick. Devonta Smith, AJ Brown's now the wide receiver one.
Yep.
So Rashad Bateman is a player in a really good offense that has the wide receiver one role, and he actually had some decent production in year one. So I like Bateman as a sleeper. He's probably going to end up on a lot of my fantasy teams, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, same here. I think this is probably the easiest one on the list, especially where he's going right now in sleeper. It's ridiculous. He's going to start off on the bench, like you were saying. And you're right, to get a wide receiver one on its own team at that spot is pretty,
especially a team with
pretty rare, especially in a good offense. The Ravens have the 4th most vacated targets going into this year. They have 267 vacated targets. And I'm not telling you they're all going to go to Bateman, but a lot of them will, because Devin Duvernay right now is their wide receiver too, outside of Bateman. So Mark Andrews will still get a huge target share, obviously, but Bateman is going to be heavily, heavily involved in that offense. And if you believe in the talent, like we did going into last season, going into the draft last year, I think Bateman I've said this before on the show, but he was your favorite guy, or one of your favorite guys coming out. So he's obviously a very good receiver, 1st round talent. We know the type of player he's capable of doing, and now he's going to have, you combine that with the opportunity he's going to get. It's a lock for me. If I can get Bateman at this point in the draft, I'm doing it 10 times out of 10. Yeah, 100%. Me and Rick agree in those categories. And I think the key note here needs to be the fact that neither of us are projecting Bateman as a breakout. At least I'm going to speak for myself. Do you think he's going to end up as? What are the chances he ends up at wide receiver one? I don't think it's as high as probably the next guy we're going to talk about, but it's not. I'm not. You're right. I'm not projecting him as a breakout.
Yeah,
basically.
All right, let's move on to the next guy who goes by the name of Adarnell Amuni. I liked Mooney last year. I have him in multiple dynasty leagues, and I like myself some Darnell Mooney. People have been trying to get Mooney off me, by the way, for quite a while.
Smart.
But it is interesting. Darnell Mooney's situation is also rather interesting. Now, we talk about Rashad Bateman being in a good offense. I don't know that the Chicago Bears are going to have a good offense in the NFL. I mean, if Justin Fields ends up being good, I still don't know that their offense is going to be all that efficient. They brought in a new coach this year, right?
They do have. I believe he's an offensive-minded coach as well. Yeah. Actually, I could be wrong, but I remember seeing something where the scheme, at least the new scheme that they're bringing in, is known to have success in passing games. Mm-hmm. So that's a good thing. Here's the thing with Mooney. The Bears could suck this year. I think they will suck, even if Fields is good. Mm-hmm. But as long as the offense is at least decent, you're looking at Mooney and Fields as potential breakouts, especially if you think Fields is any good. Then that leaves the door wide open for Mooney. The Bears' offense last year sucked. Mm-hmm. It was really, really bad, and Mooney still played really good. He was a wide receiver 23 last year in one of the worst offenses in the league with 140 targets, 1,000 yards receiving, 81 catches, 4 touchdowns. And now Allen Robinson is gone. The Bears are also in the top 10 in the league in vacated targets with 218 vacated targets. The only receiving depth on that team is Byron Pringle. Yep, who they added. He was the big free agent ad. They drafted a guy in the 3rd round, Vallis Jones Jr.
Yep.
Oh, bless me.
Whoa! Did you just bless yourself?
I did. So,
yikes.
Mooney right now has the opportunity to command he had 140 last year.
Yeah.
I think he could get 150, 160 targets.
Yeah.
And I don't care how crappy the offense is. If you're getting that many targets, you're going to produce in fantasy.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. And I was just pulling up there for a second the depth chart for the Chicago Bears, and like you said, Byron Pringle's number 2, Velus Jones, who is not a good prospect for a wide receiver position.
No, it's not.
Is the number 3 guy. You have Pettis, David Moore, Equanimus St. Brown, Tajay Sharp, Daz Newsome. I mean, these
they have to bring in another receiver, even if it's not this year, next year.
It's really gross. But I mean, he, on a team that, I think we are gonna like Darnell Mooney a little bit more because we do like Justin Fields.
Yeah.
So, I literally tweeted a video. I don't know that there's another quarterback that I love more than Mac Jones in the NFL, but Justin Fields gets kind of close, and I don't know why. I retweeted a video of him throwing this sidearm pass to a tight end who was diving, and it was a tight window, and I was like, holy mackerel. I hope this kid's good. But I think
I know that video, but
I think for Darnell Mooney, like Rick said, wide receiver 23 last year, that's pretty good in an offense that switched quarterbacks several times, wasn't very efficient, couldn't move the ball, and had Matt Nagy as their head coach. So even if he takes a progressional step forward that's smaller, he probably is a wide receiver 15. And somewhere in that range. And I think if you can get that, in ADP underdog leagues, he's a little bit higher than normal. He picks 60, but on sleeper, he's somewhere around
77.
77, yeah. So he is going a little bit higher. But
to me, the 60 range is where I would take him.
Yeah. That's definitely where I would take him.
Especially if you look at the guys right ahead of him right now, like Drake London, Adam Thielen, Treylon Burks,
right?
Brandon Cooks, Amon-Ra, Hopkins is going to be suspended. Yep. Mike Williams. So, I mean,
and it's also a guy that most likely is not going to end up being your second wide receiver.
Right.
I'm trying to pull up his reception perception profile and see what we got here, but I don't think he has released it yet. But anyway, we do 2021 was last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, good. Yeah, the reception perception chart is pretty good. He only struggles with post and slant routes, generally speaking. He's a streaker and a downfield guy, so he plays the X pretty good, but he had a lot of success. So I'm very excited about Darnell Mooney. I think he's a great draft selection. He'll probably start in your bench, like I said. He's a good sleeper. You ready to move on to the next guy, though?
Yes.
All right, so let's talk about a guy that we've liked for a couple of years, and last year kind of crapped the bed. And there's a history of this team and having wide receivers that crap the bed that follow up a crap the bed season with an elite season. So we'll continue. Hopefully this happens with Brandon Ayuk, but
Yep.
It is Brandon Ayuk from the San Francisco 49ers. And Debo started off good in his rookie year, had a bad year, and then last year went absolutely freaking nuts. Brandon Ayuk, good year in his rookie year, bad year last year. Who knows? Maybe he's going to be elite. There are some big concerns surrounding San Francisco right now. I like to believe in Trey Lance. Rick likes Trey Lance a lot more than I do. But if you expect or anticipate Trey Lance to have a really, really good season next year or take a leap or be a good NFL quarterback, then your expectations can be really high for Brandon Ayuk. If Trey Lance ends up being a mediocre quarterback, I don't know if Brandon Ayuk is going to have quite that ceiling, and I think that's why he's a sleeper in this conversation.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I don't think the San Francisco 49ers offense is going to be elite or top end like it has been in the past. It's still a good offense, but it really is going to be driven by how Trey Lance plays the wide receiver position. But last year was a tough year for Brandon Ayuk, and I think that is what really at this point has driven him down boards. He is picked 93 right now, 93.9. Meanwhile, his counterpart is going as the 21st pick in drafts. So I kind of look at this as, would you rather have right now Brandon Ayuk at his value or Deebo Samuel at his?
Actually, so I like Deebo, so asking me is not the right person to ask, but I do think they're both pretty good values. Although I would say Ayuk, I think, considering he's going, ninth round?
Yes.
And if you go back, and I just looked back, if you remember last year, the beginning of the season, when we all had high hopes for Brandon Ayuk, do you remember how Kyle Shanahan kind of benched him?
Yeah.
So in the first few weeks of the season, he wasn't getting a lot of play time, not a lot of snap percentage. And for some reason, they just benched him. I don't know if it was Kyle Shanahan just asserting his dominance, being like, you have to listen to me. And, the way he coaches is interesting.
I don't want to make fun of him, but he is kind of an idiot.
Sometimes. But so once Ayuk became back involved in the offense, he was actually a decent wide receiver too. From weeks 8 to 17, he was the wide receiver 14, which is pretty good. I will say, though, he did play a lot in a lot of games. He played in 10 games in that stretch. Mooney, by the way, was right behind him as wide receiver 15. So, but still was pretty solid. He was averaging like 13 fantasy points per game and was a decent wide receiver too. So, he was fine last year. It was really just that beginning stretch that threw everybody off. And now people are going to look back at last season and see that he finished as wide receiver 35 in all 17 games played. And they're going to be like, why is that? And that's why now he's going as the wide receiver 35 in that range when he's a better player than that. We both know that he is a better player than that. If you watch him play, he's a talented wide receiver. Still has a good opportunity as the wide receiver 2 in the offense. It's still a good offense. Now we'll see what happens with Trey Lance. You said I'm higher on him than you are. That probably is true, but I am not as high on Trey Lance as I was before the draft because of what I've seen in the NFL. Doesn't seem like he's really improved much so far, but we'll see in year 2 and if he gets the reins.
49ers
so that's actually my biggest concern with Ayuk is Trey Lance. And to see if he can take that step. But if Trey Lance ends up being good, then you're getting an absolute grand slam by drafting Brandon Ayuk in the 8th or 9th round.
Yeah, right. And on his reception perception profile, I also saw his success rate versus certain coverages. He was a 71% success rate against man, 80% against zone, and 76% against press coverage. So, and those are 64th, 64th, and 80th percentiles. So he actually had somewhat efficient success last year when he was given opportunity. It was really just the fact that, in the routes he was running, he was getting open. It was just the fact that they weren't getting him the ball because of whatever Shanahan's problem with him is. And that should that be a problem in the back of our heads? I don't know. But I think it's a good sleeper, especially if you're looking in sleeper drafts and seeing him on the board legit at pick 893. He's going to be an 8th or 9th round pick on your teams, and it's an easy selection for me.
Right. I mean, and if you look at the players that are going in that range right now, it's just like it's a gross list, especially right after him.
Right.
So Ayuk to me is definitely he has a step above those guys, and he's got great value right now.
I agree. Let's move on to the number 4 guy, which is Juju Smith-Schuster. Really interesting player because he has literally progressively gotten worse over the last couple years. Yep. I remember AB left, and he was wide receiver 133 last year, by the way, in PPR, which is
how many games?
A horrendous. I don't even know.
I think he
played
five games
played. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say
even in the 5 games he wasn't good, but 15 catches, 129 yards in 5 games.
Oh my gosh,
yeah, that's not good at all. So his biggest issue was, he had a really good season in back in 2019. No, it was back in 2018. He had 166 targets, 111 receptions. This is when they had AB, 1,400 receiving yards, 7 touchdowns. So a lot of people made the point that, Antonio Brown wasn't there, which pulled, a lot of pressure onto Juju, and he's not an outside receiver, and they tried to force him into that role and a lot of things. There was a clear thing that happened in 2019 that was a problem. Big Ben got hurt. And as soon as that happened, it kind of made Juju completely worthless in fantasy football. That year he only had 700 air yards, which is completely disgusting. 2020, arguably one of his better seasons. He finished with 14.6 points per game in PPR, which ranked 24th in 2020. 128 targets, 97 receptions. But he was only getting 8.6 yards per reception, which netted him 831 yards. A tough thing to overcome when you're not getting yardage, even though he did score 9 touchdowns. And then last year, obviously, he played 5 games and sucked. So, obviously there's big changes with him. He goes to the, Kansas City Chiefs, and that is a change. But the question is, do you still believe in Juju to be an efficient wide receiver in the NFL? Can Juju get back to that 166 targets that he had in 2018 and be efficient? You talk about his first 3 seasons in the NFL, where he arguably had his best performances. He had 15.8 yards per reception, 12.8 yards per reception, 13.1 yards per reception. Last 2 years, 8.6 and 8.6. Ben Roethlisberger tossing him the ball did not necessarily help.
It was also how they used him, though.
Yeah, it was how they used him.
Underneath crossings every play.
So I feel like in the, and I don't think he can be a vertical deep threat wide receiver. I just don't think that's in his repertoire. But how the Kansas City Chiefs like to utilize Sammy Watkins when he was healthy is how I think they're going to utilize Juju. And going back and looking at Watkins over those stretches of games where he was healthy and playing slot for the Kansas City Chiefs, he was actually good for fantasy football. So I don't think he has, some people are out here saying he has the Tyreek Hill ceiling. And he can get that, and I
don't believe that.
I am not on that train at all. I think he's capped by his role, but can he be something similar to what, say, Julian Edelman was for the Patriots and that in fantasy football, where you're a high-end wide receiver too? 100%. And maybe he gets targeted out the pants by Patrick Mahomes and he's getting 166 targets. he could finish as a top 10 wide receiver at that point. I think it's very slim that he does that. But I do think he's going to produce a lot better than he has over the last couple of years, and it's going to lead to good things. So I'm on the Juju train for this year, at least.
Yeah, I am too. And I think the people that expect him to be Tyreek Hill, they're going to be disappointed with that. And you brought up, do you think he can still be the same player that he was with the 166 targets?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure if it's going to be that. But what I will say is I still believe in the player. I think Juju is still a very good receiver when he's used right. I believe in the offense. Kansas City Chiefs offense obviously is ridiculous, even without Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
It might take a slight step down, but it's still going to be a good offense.
Mm-hmm.
And then you believe in Patrick Mahomes, obviously is probably the best quarterback in the NFL. So you got those factors going for you, and he's at pick 80 as right now the number one receiver on the team. That should be good value. And I think Mahomes is going to spread the ball out a little bit. You'll see Hardman, MVS might have a big touchdown here and there. Sky Moore might do something. So there will be a lot of guys getting touches, and I think that's going to hurt Juju's ceiling.
Yeah.
But he's still going to be the main guy. I think he's probably going to be the third down player. He's going to get he had 3 touchdowns in 2019. He had 9 in 2020. I think it's going to be closer to that. I could see another year where he gets 9 touchdowns. And that year, I think what he did in 2020 is going to be what he does this year, except his yards per reception should go up. And if that's the case, then you're looking at a top, 2015 fantasy wide receiver. And he's getting slept on just based on that. So to get a guy who's going to be the number one player in that offense, I think it's pretty good value. And you can kind of see a trend with some of the guys that we're choosing here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great value. And players that have pretty good situations.
Very good situations.
Hill's not there anymore. Who's the wide receiver one for the Chiefs?
I think it's Juju.
Yeah. He'll play the slot. He'll play his role, but it's the number one target on the team at receiver is probably Juju. Funny statistic here, though. All the slot receiver routes by success for Juju, right? 90% success rate in the flat, 80% slant, 100% success rate on screen passes, 66% success rate on other routes. And then out routes are 83%. Routes that slot receivers run. The rest of them are horrible percentage-wise. On curls, comebacks, digs, posts, 9 routes, and corner routes, he doesn't get over 60% success.
Is that's his success rate of beating coverage or success rate of the play?
The success rate of the play that he runs, or the route that he runs.
Do you think that has anything to do with Big Ben throwing the ball down the field?
It could have an effect on this 100%. So he's never been really great
either way, though,
at the deeper part of the field and being an X receiver on the outside, but I think he's going to be fine in KC, and I think it's a good move for him to go there. He should have done it a while ago. I don't know why he stayed in Pittsburgh. He had offers on the table from the Chiefs and Baltimore, and he screwed himself. So anyway, let's get to the last guy, and this is one of Rick's guys.
Yeah, you wanted to put someone else on this list.
Yeah, I want to put Hardman because Kansas City wide receiver.
We would have had 2 Chiefs though.
No 2 Chiefs. We'll get rid of that. But anyway, Christian Kirk is the final guy that we're going to talk about. Kirk is really good. Obviously, not really good. He's just.
I was gonna say,
man. I was searching for words in my head, and I just said really good. Christian Kirk was okay with the Arizona Cardinals. He signs a monster, unnecessary contract with the the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yep.
And he basically becomes their wide receiver one at this point. And I'll let Rick take it from here because I'm going to take all his points that he told me pre-show. I'll find something else to talk about.
Yeah, it's funny because I don't even like the player that much. I don't at all.
Yeah.
I think his contract was ridiculous. But here's the thing. They gave him that contract. He's getting paid as a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL.
Yeah.
So they clearly think he's the number one. They're clearly going to use him as the number one. So that alone he's going to get 150 targets just based on that. And if you look at the depth chart as well, if you're like, oh, well, no, I mean, if you don't think he's a good player, he's better than Marvin Jones and he's better than Zay Jones. And that's pretty much his only competition, because right now, if you go to the Jaguars depth chart, it's Christian Kirk, Marvin Jones, Zay Jones. Laviska is still on the team, but early on in training camp, he's getting heavily used in special teams, on kick returns, punt returns, all that stuff. So I think they'll still find a role for him, but he's not going to take away a ton of targets. And if you believe in Trevor Lawrence at all, which I do, he was considered a generational prospect coming out of college, or at least close to it. Was a clear number one pick. And yes, he struggled last year, but he also probably had the worst coach in the NFL in the last 5 years with him.
Yeah.
If you believe in Lawrence at all and think he can take a year or two jump, then Christian Kirk will produce. It's just about the numbers. And I don't know if he's a great player, but he's going to at least have a decent season. And with all that being said, he's at pick 115 right now. So even if he does blow, you're not really wasting too much on him because he's a 10th, 11th round pick.
Yeah. No, and I like this. I like this as a sleeper too, because there is, it was similarly with what we talked about with Juju. He had a ton of success in Arizona as a slot receiver. And I think the question here is, there's a lot going on in that Jacksonville offense in the slot. ETN was supposed to play a lot of receiver when they drafted him. I don't know if that's going to continually be the case, but he's going to end up in the slot a little bit. They still have, what's his name?
Laviska
Shenault. Thank you. Did you already say his name before?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. They have Laviska, who also has played the slot. And then you also have Marvin Jones, who is most likely going to be their outside receiver X kind of player. But Kirk comes in and he has that big contract. And to me, unless there's a lack of connection between Trevor Lawrence. This is a train wreck ending for me here. Unless it's Trevor Lawrence, if he has a good connection with Christian Kirk, which I think, they paid this money, so at some point he's got to be that. Right. He's going to get a heavy target share. Do you know what the vacated target share for Jacksonville is?
Yeah, they did lose Chark, but Chark missed pretty much the whole season last year, so it's not crazy high. They still do have it's near the bottom of the league, but it's still actually it's in the middle of the league. 161 vacated targets, so it's still not bad.
Yeah.
I think Kirk's going to get a lot of that because the only other guys would be Zay Jones, and I don't think he's really doing too much. Maybe ETN too, but that would also take away from James Robinson's targets since he's going to miss the beginning of the season. So I think there are targets to be had there. The Jaguars also ran, I believe, some of the fewest total plays in the NFL last year. I'll double check on that just because of how bad
their offense was.
The team was. Usually, typically really bad teams don't get to run as many plays because they're stuck on defense the whole game. But I will double check on that.
Yeah.
Let me see. Passing.
I don't when he signed with Jacksonville, they needed a receiver. So it made sense, but it's just kind of one of those really it's not a sexy pick, but at 115, I mean, that's definitely a deep sleeper. You know what I mean? Or not a deep sleeper, but a sleeper pick where you can grab him. He might produce as a, mid to low end wide receiver too. And give you some production as the season goes along. And then if he has some kind of really great connection with Trevor Lawrence, it could develop into something slightly more. But I don't think, Christian Kirk is going to end up being a top 10, 12 guy. I just, I don't think it's in the cards for him. But I think he's a good, reliable wide receiver that I think they want Trevor Lawrence to have. And that could translate into fantasy,
Right. Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I know they ran 996 plays last year, which is less than 1,000. I think that's a little below league average. I don't have the numbers in front of me.
Yeah.
But that's not great. And I think that could go up as well. So I think Christian Kirk at his value is pretty good.
Yeah, I agree. We also have 3 honorable mentions: Hardman, Michael Gallup, Hollywood Brown's a little high. I think I'm just going to peg him as a good player to draft. In the middle round.
He's not really a sleeper.
But anyway, there you have it. Top 5 sleeper wide receivers for 2022 fantasy football. Bateman, Mooney, Ayuk, Schuster, Kirk. Make sure you get them on your team. They'll be on all our teams, I think.
Probably.
But anyway, we got tight end sleepers on Thursday. We'll see you later, guys.
Take it easy.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.